Hello everyone, I'm Synthid. Welcome to my analysis and summary of the Handsome Jackpot DLC. This is the fourth part of my Borderlands 3 critique. A link to the playlist will be thrown in the corner at around now. This will be one of the last Borderlands 3 videos that I am making, thankfully, so sit back, get cozy, and reminisce about Borderlands 2 with me as we go through this.
Okay, bad news first. This place houses a security system that rivals most nuclear missile silos. First, we have to get within the casino cages, which anybody will tell you takes more than a smile.
So we start the DLC with Moxie telling us about Handsome Jack's casino, because at this point it's the only interesting idea left that the writers have to work with. We navigate to the casino from the ship and drop pod in. We then get Handsome Jack narrating the cutscene, and his voice just sounds off here. I can't tell if it's the timbre or the tone, but it just sounds odd. Maybe it's just me though. Moxie then summarizes Handsome Jack and states that the casino went on lockdown and has been for 7 years when Jack died. She also wants to take control of the casino to scratch Jack out of her book forever. Moxie warns that the people there might be a bit feral, and to stay careful. And immediately after, we hear bandit dialogue. Moxie then suggests that somebody else has been running the casino in Jack's stead. There's a giant tower, and Moxie says that the controls to the entire casino are in there. We then get threatened by a bandit leader and slaughter them. Then we get a call from Pretty Boy, introducing himself. He runs the casino. Around the same time, we hear a distress call and fight off Hyperion loaders. We rescue Timothy, the doppelganger from the pre-sequel who is not Jack.
No, don't shoot, this is not what it looks like. I am not Jack, not at all.
He just has surgery to look and sound exactly like him. Timothy says he also wants to get into the tower and decides he wants to team up with us. The area is surveyed and there are death turrets blocking us from getting to Pretty Boy. There's also a teleporter that only Jack's DNA can use, so we steal apart and fix it for Timothy, and he heads back to his house. On our way to meet up with Timothy, Pretty Boy calls us and tells us that security will attack us on sight, but he'll wipe our debt for damaging all the bots and tries to get us to make a deal with him to turn Timothy over. After meeting Timothy at his base, he explains that all the doppelgangers had hands that could open up anything on the casino. He also says that all other doppelgangers had them and that all the others are dead, much like Second Amendment supporters in Virginia after their government regrettably goes ape. He says he killed some, but the others are unclear. After he asks us who we work for, we tell him Moxie sent us, and he freaks out a bit as him and Moxie last met in the pre-sequel. Tim Skype calls Moxie and she remembers him, which surprises him, and she asks why he shouldn't die. Timothy explains the situation and why he should be kept alive, and Moxie goes along with us in telling us to keep an eye on him. Timothy explains that he will help us, and the only thing he wants in return is the override code so that way his head doesn't explode when he leaves. What Timothy doesn't know is that I played Fallout 3, so my track record for keeping Bond neck folk alive is not great at all. We then start to form a crew to break into the tower, similar to a heist movie. Timothy says that the doppels weren't all bad, that they tried to help people by giving them food with their hands, but they were torn to pieces by those panicking. I just want to take a second to appreciate that Gearbox wanted to humanize the doppels, to show that not all of them are awful Hyperion goons. It makes them come off as more sympathetic, which is never a bad thing. So we are sent to find Ember in the Vice District. Tim explains that Ember hid him from gangs for a while before he disappeared on her, as to try not to cause her any more trouble than he already has. He says after the lockdown, people tried to form a society and Pretty Boy killed them all. While he has access to security, he needs Timothy's hand to gain access to control the food, oxygen, and water supplies. We talk to a stripper bot and get a call from Ember, and no, I am not joking. To gain Ember's trust, we pick up a bomb and blow up a statue of Pretty Boy. We then kill Pretty Boy's thugs and meet Ember in person. I guess Gearbox took a page out of the Taliban's notebook, with the blow-up statues to prove your loyalty thing. We meet Ember and she tells us that she tried to help Tim forget about his past, but he couldn't escape the mask. She then says that she will help so long as we get her tools from her ship. Turns out Pretty Boy sent her ship to the impound lot and we have to track it down. She explains that the debt gathered in the casino would lead to your ship being taken until it was paid off in full. This trapped many people here, and now Pretty Boy wields this power. So Pretty Boy calls and threatens us again, just like my ex-girlfriend did after I stuck my... You know, that's not important. We go to the DMV and try to get the form needed to go get a ship. We move on only to get stuck in queue and take someone else's ticket, but it's a trap so we fight off Pretty Boy's men and kill them. We then rush past security, killing a bunch of robots, and meet Freddy, who looks like a colorblind Macho Man Randy Savage or an 80s porn star. Freddy says he can hack the ship out if we save his loaderbot friend. So we do, and we get Ember's tools back from her ship. Freddy heard about our plan to take the tower, and we let Freddy in after checking with Tim, Ember, and Moxie. We then head back to Tim's hideout. Moxie talks to Tim and she suspects there's a secret weapon in the casino. Tim says he doesn't know about it, and Moxie says that for all of our sakes, he better be telling the truth. There's one person left to gather who is Jack's old tailor. To fool the tower security, Tim is going to need to dress and act exactly like Handsome Jack to pass through this personal scanner. So we head to the market district with the intentions of heading down the trash chute to speak to the mayor. But it turns out we missed our window for the chute to be open, as it only happens once a day. So we have to burn trash to lure out a cleaning bot with keys to the chute. After we accomplish this, Tim tells us that Jax Taylor is the mayor of Trashlantis and Pretty Boy's trying to crush them in the compactor. Kinda odd to have one in space, but maybe they compact it and send it into the black hole it circles? It's not touched on at all. Pretty Boy calls and tells us that he can control nearly the whole casino except he's trapped in the tower. Turns out Jack only kept him around because his face made Jack laugh. So at least the writers got Jack's personality down pat. It's a shame they couldn't do that with all the other past characters. So we head to Trashlantis, and we have to prove ourselves to get in by placing the keys to happiness on the ground. We can either place the keys or just stand around. I like the standing around option solely because it amuses me. So after walking up to the gate, we are welcomed by the mayor. The mayor asks us to reinforce the compactor so that way it doesn't crush and kill everybody in Trashlantis, and in return, he will help us get into the tower. He has a constructor just sitting around. And we need a Hyperion AI chip. Freddy also helps us over the comms. Don't ask me how or why constructor and also loaders made it down to a trash chute, but, you know, just kinda there. So we head to Refuse Ridge to find the chip. And then we fight old Claptraps as a boss fight, and it's probably my favorite thing in the DLC. I'll talk about the boss fights later, but thinking about it, those Claptraps must have been there for like a decade, give or take 2 years. So this casino has been active since Jack became the CEO of Hyperion. The mayor then says an exiled town man named Tony has a constructor eye which we need to grab to complete it. So we grab it and return to Trashlantis. Freddy shows up and he works on the power source of the constructor. We give life to the Clapstructor. The mayor needs the constructor to reinforce a beam blocking the compactor. Tony's empire controls the territory around the shredder, so we need to escort the constructor through safely. We kill Tony's men, and he begs Pretty Boy for backup. Pretty Boy and Tony made a deal, and we defend our Clapstructor friend from Pretty Boy's bots. The Clapstructor sacrifices himself, kinda, to reinforce the beam. After saving Trashlantis, the mayor agrees to come to the surface and help us. So we return to Tim's hideout and construct our game plan. Moxie has Timothy narrate a plan, and we have, what is in my opinion, the best part of the game with a movie-like cutscene and a jump cut of events. So what is the plan? Well, I'm glad you didn't ask, because if you did, I wouldn't have been able to hear you anyways. In short, Step 1, gather a crew. Step 2, take down death turrets by getting into the casino core and getting us a blueprint. The mayor has a contact that has one, so we kill him and nab the plan. Step 3, bypass security. After the turrets die and the security door will drop, Ember says she can make a bomb out of Compound 24, so we go and steal that. Then, we need to go into the core and go through a one-of-a-kind scanner that will only work for Handsome Jack. The mayor says he hid one of Jack's old uniforms in his shop. So we go retrieve it for Timothy so he can cosplay as Jack and fool the detector. So we clear the area for Tim and he shows up dressed as Jack. He uses the scanner and a force field deactivates, letting us access the core. We head down and clear out Ratch and destroy Ratch nests blocking our path. So Timothy teleports and tries to turn off the controls to the force field and a constructor takes Tim. We see that Freddy has betrayed us and made a deal with Pretty Boy. Also, why did Timothy change his clothes? I know it's minor, but it's just so unnecessary. Also, wait, how the hell did Freddy get in here? Wait, if he got in here, then why couldn't we have just gone that way? I thought the whole point of doing this was to get into the core because it's the only way to do so.
Bullshit!
Okay, game, okay. Moxie has us continue to follow the plan to shut off the power to the tower. We shut off force fields and head towards the power cable. It turns out that Jack does have a secret under his casino. The secret is a massive loader construction facility, with enough loaders to take over the solar system. We then run into the Fabricator, which is a new prototype constructor. After dealing with it, we destroy a pipe powering the death turrets. We then go meet Ember and burn a hole through the door as we defend it. We open the path to the tower and Freddy stops us. We kill him and then head on to Pretty Boy's location. We see Timothy stuck in a laser cage and Pretty Boy's in control of a giant mech of Handsome Jack, which is a very unique fight. Again, we'll get to the bosses in a little bit. After we kill Pretty Boy, the casino starts to fly towards the black hole. So we try to hack Jack's command console, but to no avail, which means Timothy can't be freed. Tim tells Moxie there won't be a second date and that she and us should go back, but Moxie won't give up on him. So in this crisis, Timothy goes fucking ape mode and cuts his hand off to save us and himself. We use it on Jack's console to save the casino and Timothy.
Dinner that night?
I was hungry.
Yeah, but Jack, he was the worst.
Oh, honey. If I thought you were Jack, I'd have shot you the moment you stepped up to my bar.
So, I didn't even fool you a little.
Not even a little.
So that's the story for the DLC. To me, the story feels like Borderlands 2 again, with sharp, witty writing. Seeing Timothy again and having his story end the way it did was a nice wrap-up for the character. It felt natural that he outgrew the shadow of Handsome Jack. Him and Moxie making amends was something that I was very glad to see. He was handled respectfully, and they did a great job keeping him consistent, unlike the other characters in the base game story. There was also no Ava, and no references to her, so thank you, Gearbox. Truly, thank you. You guys have no idea how early at the end that Brainlet isn't in this story. But I know that won't last long, because they keep insisting that she's a good character for some reason. But, you know, what the fuck do we know? We only played the game.
That's all you have to say. Maya's dead because you wanted to open the vaults. We should be hunting down the Calypsos and making them pay for what they did.
It's not that easy.
Maya always told me a vault hunter runs toward the fire. All her stories were about you. You saved Pandora. You killed Handsome Jack. You're supposed to be the Firehawk.
I don't know what I am.
Figure it out, Lilith, before you get someone else killed.
The side characters like Ember and the Mayor also had their own charms to them. There were a lot of interesting ideas in this DLC, and I hope that they improve in quality. Story-wise, this was so much better than the base game that it was night and day. The writing here is tight, the plot is easy to follow, and takes great inspiration from heist movies, which is a unique idea to inject into Borderlands. Although I do have, obviously, some issues with it, and there are some holes here and there, some things that just don't make sense. But I think overall it is more consistent than the base game of Borderlands 3 story. It just all worked, and for that, I'm grateful to the hard workers at Gearbox Software. I just hope that the writing quality goes up in time.
I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh. There's no time to play games. You won't even get the chance.
You won't be able to just attack me. Try something to lower his defenses.
Not bad, imposter.
Do you know who I am?
So there are 4 bosses, and we're just going to start in order. So we have the Scrap Trap Nest. The nest itself is a confined area with a small open section and a winding circular part to it as well. The Scrap Traps will rush the player with wrenches and beat them, and they will swarm you. They have a few kinds of melee attacks with the wrenches, but nothing significant. They will drop ammo upon being killed. After killing enough of them to deplete the first health bar, a giant claptrap called Scrap Trap Prime will come out. He will shoot out a triangle of 5 heavily damaging buzzsaws, use the badass Psycho's ground slam attack, and try to melee the player with a wrench. Those are all of his attacks. Also, Scrap Traps will keep coming as the fight progresses. This is a fresh idea for a boss, and it caught me off guard severely the first time I fought them. I thought to myself that maybe Gearbox was listening about the criticisms levied against their boss design, so they tried new ideas. Moving on, we have the loot. All bosses being farmed 50 times on Mayhem 0. These Scrap Traps dropped us an insane 66 legendaries, yes, I'm serious. I received 28 Lucky 7s, 22 Boomers, and 11 Slackbot mods, and 15 class mods. Next up, the Fabricator is a new prototype constructor boss that has the same problem as the base game bosses. He can launch a shock ball at you, make loaders, launch fireballs, and shoot shock blasts. He will also slam down if you approach him. Sometimes the Fabricator will cover his eyes, which is his crit spot, and launch a 3-missile barrage at the player. Those are all of his attacks, nothing really substantial or different. He's another bland boss, but at least he's an overused asset. His arena is shaped like a house, with some boxes for cover and some ammo crates sprinkled around. Overall, Fabricator dropped us 62 legendaries, 51 being the Ion Cannon, which is the Spartan laser of the game. Unfortunately, it was nerfed to use 7 ammo per shot, but it deals a great amount of damage. Also, the Fabricator has a tendency to shoot his loot off stage, so be careful about that. Next up is Freddy and his bots Petunia and Dandelion. Petunia is a bowl loader, and the Dandelion is an RPG loader. They have the same attacks as their loader counterparts, with more health. Freddy, on the other hand, has 3 attacks. He shoots and kicks, and sometimes he'll even smack you Chris Brown style. Ugh, god, more of the same fucking bullshit we had in the base game. Great! Fantastic. Thank you, Gearbox, for in the same DLC having 1 interesting boss idea and so far 2 bland ones to balance it out. God, it's so fucking lazy. At this point, I have lost all hope in Gearbox boss designs. Also, you need to kill all the loaders in the arena before Freddy spawns, which would be fine if not for the times when the loaders don't fucking spawn correctly. His area is at least a tad bit different than others by having a lot of room to run around, but at the same time it's completely unneeded because Freddy will barely even move. Freddy dropped us a whopping 80 legendaries, 50 being the auto-aim. which is a dull sniper that kind of homes in on targets but not really. The last and final boss is the Handsome Mech. He will shoot wrist beams at the player, hand blasts, and shoot incendiary rockets. Handsome Mech can throw little loaders out of his chest. He will also shoot out a 5-beam attack from his chest. Periodically, the mech will dash and throw flames in a circle. That was his phase 1, and in phase 2, the mech will get faster. He gains an attack where he shoots missiles out of his back. In phase 3, he will get even faster and start mixing his flamethrower with wrist blasts. The mech will gain an attack where he spins in a circle and shoots out flames dealing heavy damage, and it has a massive hitbox. Finally, in phase 4, the mech will start to fly around. His health bar will also switch from armor to an actual health bar. Periodically, he will come down to do a kick spin and do a backflip to shoot out an incendiary blast. The mech will also gain a single beam, heavily damaging eye blast. That's all for his attacks. Now onto the arena. It's a rectangle with some Handsome Jack statues, with ammo crates scattered around. In fact, the mech's attacks can break those Jack statues, and this boss fight is fantastic. The mech has varying attacks, decent amounts of health, and is something that is actually very unique. I hope that Gearbox continues forward with bosses like Handsome Mech and Agonizer, but I seriously doubt it. Handsome Mech dropped a total of an insane 100 legendaries, and out of those 100 we received 14 Crops pistols. Overall, the bosses again were a mixed bag, with some of the same old pitfalls and holes that affected the ones in the base game. Scrap Trap and Jackpot, however, were very unique and original. They were a step up from most things in the base game. They at least gave the DLC a little bit of variety. I just wish that Freddy and the Fabricator were different. And while I'm happy they're not reused assets like General Tron and Archimedes, I think the Gearbox really could have done better. I think the Gearbox is setting the bar way too low for themselves, and that they're kind of just being lazy with their boss design. There's so many ideas in the Borderlands franchise. You could add new creatures, you could have an Iridian come back to be a boss or something like that, or just anything. Anything new and unique and different. There's so much you can do, but they just choose these basic, boring ideas. I understand that Freddy being a boss was just part of the story, but come on, you could have done so much more with him. Maybe have him become a part of a robot or something like that, an android, or I don't know, just anything else that isn't just him running around with 2 basic loaders with a little bit more health, that's all. I just hope that next DLC, the bosses aren't a mixed bag. I really don't want another DLC where it's 2 bad, 1 decent, and 1 good boss. It's really underwhelming. And again, in this DLC, there's no raid boss, so sorry anybody who wanted endgame content. Looks like we're shit out of luck yet again.
I am heavy weapons guy. And this is my weapon.
So for weapons, let's start with uniques before moving on to the new legendary items. Let's start with the Robo Melter Masher. It's just a corrosive Jacob's Masher, but it has a decent damage output. Next up is the always corrosive Hyperion Just Cause, which when aiming down sights puts up a shield that can deflect bullets back at attackers. Other than that, it's a pretty standard Hyperion SMG. Timothy Lawrence will give the player this during the campaign. The Brad Luck COV Assault Rifle is always cryo weapon that when fired, will randomly slow down and speed up. This on a COV rifle isn't great as it can cause the weapon to overheat more often. Doing the mission One Man's Treasure will get you the weapon. Following a mediocre rifle is a very interesting one. Digby's Smooth Tube is a dull assault rifle that plays jazz music when fired. It is very accurate with decent damage output as well. This weapon can be obtained by doing the Do It for Digby trilogy of quests. Our last unique is the Face Melter Shotgun. It is a full auto Hyperion shotgun that has a high damage output. I suggest grabbing this by doing the Acid Trip side quest. Moving on to shields, we have the All-In Shield. The special effect is when the shield is damaged, it will drop a booster that will increase luck or action skill cooldown. This can be received by doing the mission Regaining One's Feet. Next is the Double Downer Shield. This shield's effect is when you are crippled, it increases fight for your life duration, weapon damage, accuracy, and handling. It can be gotten from doing the mission Double Down. Our final unique shield is Ember's Blaze, which when depleted just puts out a bunch of flames, so it's nothing really special. If you want it though, it is received by doing the mission Playing with Fire. So now that uniques are out of the way, let's go to the legendaries. First up is the Boomer, which is a dull SMG that drops from any suitable loot source, but mostly Scrap Trap. Its special effect is that it shoots exploding bullets. It's about average for legendary and it's really not too great at doing much, but if you find one on a lower level character, then one can make good use of it. Next up is the Lucky 7 Jacobs pistol. That drops from any suitable loot source but mostly Scrap Trap. When reloaded, you will see multiple icons popping up causing different effects. It can shoot lasers to having a shotgun spread to explosives. These effects can also stack. It's a very good weapon and I highly recommend grabbing one. Next up we have the Craps Torgue pistol, which can drop from any suitable loot source but mainly the Jackpot. This weapon has a chance to shoot 4 additional bullets per shot and kinda works like a ghetto Unkempt Herald. It's a decent weapon but not too much to write home about. The Heartbreaker Shotgun is a Hyperion weapon returning from Borderlands 2 and can drop from any suitable loot source, but mainly Gorgeous Armada. This weapon fires in a heart pattern and has passive healing, so if you're in the market for that, then this weapon is for you. Moxie's Slowhand Hyperion Shotgun also makes a return and can drop from any suitable loot source, but has an increased chance to drop from Dagon 3. The Slowhand has an elemental splash effect. It reduces projectile count and projectile speed and heals the user for a percentage of the damage dealt. It's an alright weapon, but nothing crazy. Next up is the Doll Sniper Auto Aim, which can drop from any suitable loot source, but mostly Freddy. Like the name suggests, its shots home in on targets. It's a decent weapon and again is nothing crazy. However, if you need a decent rifle, then this might be worth looking into. Next we have the Ion Laser Maliwan SMG, that drops from any loot source but has an increased chance to drop from Evil St. Lawrence. The weapon's special effect is that holding down the trigger will release up to 6 additional projectiles within the span of 3 seconds. After that is the Hyperion Cheap Tips SMG, which can drop from any loot source but has an increased chance to drop from Jackpot. This weapon's perk is that damaging enemies has a chance to drop a chip that increases gun damage for 12 seconds. It's again another decent weapon like many are in the DLC. Nothing too bad, but nothing too crazy. After that, we have the returning Kramer Rocket Launcher, which can drop from any suitable loot source, but has an increased chance to drop from Junpei Goat Eater. This launcher's rock is split in two when fired from a certain range, and while that's decent, it's not going to be your first or even 5th option, as better launchers in the base game and DLC put this one to shame. After that, we have another returning launcher, that being the Nukem from Borderlands 2. This weapon can drop from anywhere, but has an increased chance to drop from Chantale, whatever. The Nukem, like the name suggests, fires a nuke that does AoE damage, except it fires in an arc. The weapon again is pretty decent and is a very useful tool to use on MOs. The last new launcher is the Ion Cannon, which drops only from the Fabricator. This weapon is the Spartan Laser of Borderlands 3. It has a large charge-up time for massive amounts of damage. It is extremely worthwhile and I recommend getting one in every element and using them on MOs. Next is the Ryko Shield, which is a quest reward for finishing the DLC. Its effect is that it has a 50% chance to reflect projectiles while full and an 80% chance to reflect them while depleted. It's a decent shield, but nothing really to write home about. After that we have Ember's Purge, Maliwan SMG, which is received from Ember after completing all of her pieces of resistance. The special effect is when the weapon's projectile hits a surface, it will create a pool of lava that will last for 10 seconds. Again, another decent weapon that will lose out to the Cutsman. But if this sounds interesting to you, then feel free to grab it. Our final weapon is the Scoville, which is received from Torg after completing all of the market disasters. The weapon fires bottles of hot sauce in an arc that do decent amounts of damage. Again, it's another run-of-the-mill pistol. However, with all that being said, I implore everyone to go get these weapons and see how you personally like them. It seems that in the DLC they went with interesting and silly ideas rather than straight up good weapons. However, I wish we had gotten both out of the DLC, as good and gimmicky weapons are an absolute joy, at least to me personally. I, however, appreciate the creativity on the gun team and hope that the next DLC is full of weapons that are just as interesting.
And we'll get better over time, from paid DLC to paid DLC.
The lore section is going to be very short and brief, so I'm just going to get to the point. The real first piece of lore is when Timothy Lawrence talks about the doppelgangers, that all the doppels had the magic hands and that not all of them were bad people. He says when the casino shut down, they tried to give out food and drinks to people. They were trying to help those who were stuck with them. However, the crowd turned violent and ripped the doppels apart. Timothy only survived by hiding away. Also, if you're like me and wondering why Timothy now has a mask, he tells us in this line of dialogue.
And I never really resented Lilith, but after Jack got his scar, he branded all of us body doubles to match, so I'm a little miffed about that.
Since Jack was scarred and had to wear a mask, so too did the doppels. We find out that Timothy also can't say his name legally. He also has a bomb implanted into his face, which would explode if he tried to leave any Hyperion property.
Try telling it to the guy who doesn't have a bomb surgically implanted in his face, lady. Well, I'm legally forbidden to tell you, but it rhymes with Jimothy.
So what do I think of the Handsome Jackpot DLC? Well, I'll start by saying that I had a lot of fun playing through this for the first time. The DLC really reminded me of Borderlands 2, and for me, it hit most of the right chords. The characters were all likable, and having Moxie and Timothy being the main characters of the DLC was a great idea. We haven't really gotten to see much of Moxie in the base game, so letting her shine here was great. Another great idea was not including Ava in any capacity. The community mostly hates this character for obvious reasons. But if Gearbox is smart, they'll keep her on the down low, and maybe possibly give her a character arc so she becomes more likable. The side characters, such as Ember and the Mayor, were nice additions to the story. And the twist with Freddy, while predictable, at least was entertaining. The story was a mirror of a heist movie, and it was refreshing to have that in the Borderlands game, especially since the base story was a flaming pile of garbage. However, I was somewhat disappointed with the story, but I liked it overall. I was glad to see the loaders were back, and the new slot machine enemies are really cool. I just wish that they didn't reskin the COV as a new faction of bandits, and having a new faction with new attacks would have been very interesting. Getting lore on Timothy was nice, but I wish they would have given us something else about our past Vault Hunters, even more on Handsome Jack. More lore on those subjects would have done wonders for the community. The new weapons are all interesting minus the uniques. The uniques really could have been more unique. They just feel like either normal corrosive weapons or just have really boring gimmicks. The legendaries are all interesting and are mostly pretty good. The teams at Gearbox definitely put a lot of original ideas into this DLC, and it's honestly a good start to the Season Pass. Overall, I would say it's alright, but still disappointing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm in the middle of making a very special video while writing the script for this video, and by the time this video comes out, all of the scripts and content for Borderlands 3 should almost be done, and I can finally stop talking about this game. The next major project launch will hopefully be within the month. I'm going to try and space out some smaller videos to keep you guys interested. Also, thank you guys so much for 20 subs, it really does mean a lot to me. We're a very small community, but it's one that I'm really proud of, and one that I hope to see grow. So, without further ado, I hope to see you guys in the next video.